Hello and good afternoon, CSI 158, Section 841 and 847 students for the Routing and Switching Essentials course for the second 8-week term during the spring 2014 semester at Anne Arundel Community College. Today's tutorial video is going to cover Packet Tracer Activity 5.1.3.6, where we're going to be configuring a router on a stick and inter-VLAN routing, to do inter-VLAN routing. As you can see, we have our addressing table at the top. Our objectives are going to be to test connectivity without inter-VLAN routing. We're going to add our VLANs, configure our sub-interfaces on the router, and then test connectivity with inter-VLAN routing. And remember, router on a stick is one of 3 ways that the course has described how you would do inter-VLAN routing. The first being the legacy method, where each port on the router would represent a specific VLAN, and then simply plug into an access port on the switch. The second method was inter-VLAN routing on a multi-layer switch, and the third method discussed is this method here. It's configuring a router on a stick. Alright, so let's dive in. So test connectivity between PC1 and PC3. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the desktop, and we're going to go ahead and ping, and we would expect that this is not going to work. So 172.17.30. Let's see here. Should probably take a look at this real quick. See the desktop here. Whoops. I'll check the addressing table real quick here. So PC3 does not show on the addressing table. Alright, so let's see what we've got. See if we can get in here. Alright, 30.10. Okay. 172.17.30.10. And so we're going to go ahead and try to ping from PC1 to PC3. And as you can see, our requests are timing out and they're not going to work. Alright, so I'm going to kill that window there. So as we would expect, it doesn't work. It says switch to simulation mode to monitor the ping, so we're good there. We don't need to do that. So let's go ahead and let's add the VLANs to the switch. So on switch 1, we're going to go ahead and create the VLANs that we need here. So we'll go from user exec into privilege exec mode, and then into global config mode, and then we're going to go ahead and enter in our VLANs. And so it says return to real time and create VLAN 10 and VLAN 30. So we'll do VLAN 10, and let's see if it wants us to name the VLAN. No, we're going to leave the names the same, and then I'll basically type in VLAN 30. So if I do a do show VLAN brief, you can see we now have VLAN 10 and VLAN 30. Alright, so it's now asking us again, it says assign PC1 to VLAN 10 and PC3 to VLAN 30. So PC1 is in FA011 and PC3 is in FA06. So let me pull this window back over here, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go into interface FA, let's make sure we get this right, FA0/11. Alright, so we'll do switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 10. So we'll switch interfaces and we'll move over to FA, let me double check, FA06, FA0/6. So we'll do switch port mode access, switch port access VLAN 30. Alright, and let's go ahead and do a do show IP interfaces brief, and let's make sure that those interfaces are up. So 06 is up and up, and 011 is up and up. Okay. Let's see what our next test is. It says test connectivity from PC1 to PC3 again. Right, so we'll go ahead and we'll pull up PC1 and we'll try to ping PC3 again, and we should expect that this is not going to work because again we're going to be configuring the router on a stick. So again, these requests are going to time out here. I'll wait for the second one. Alright, and then we'll move on. So those are definitely going to time out. So we've tested the configuration here again. It's not working. So now we're going to come to part 3, configure sub interfaces. So configure sub interfaces on router 1 using the 802.1q encapsulation. create the subinterface Gigabit Ethernet 0/0.10, set the encapsulation to .1Q and assign VLAN 10 to the subinterface. Refer to the address table to assign the correct IP to the subinterface. And we're going to repeat the same steps for the subinterface GI 0/0.30. Alright, so 0/0.10 is going to be 10.1 with a /24 mask, and 0/0.30 will be 30.1 with a /24 mask. So let's slide back down here. So it asks us to configure the interfaces on the router. Alright, so we're going to pull the router config up here. We're going to go from user exec mode into privilege exec mode. Alright, and we'll go from privilege exec into global config. And from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go into interface Gigabit Ethernet 0/0.10. Right, I'm going right into the subinterface. And it's important to remember that we're not actually configuring the main physical interface. We're actually creating a subinterface underneath that main physical interface, which would be Gigabit Ethernet 0/0. Alright, so we're going to do encapsulation, and let's take a look at our options here. So we can choose .1Q, right? And then it's asking for the VLAN, and this is going to be VLAN 10. And again, when I create the subinterface, I apologize, my printer's going off here. When I create the subinterface, what I'd like to do, if I can, is always make the subinterface number the same as the VLAN that it represents. And this just makes troubleshooting a little easier. It doesn't have to be the same, but it's a good idea to make it the same thing. And do we have any other options? We don't. And we're not doing the native. Alright, so now that I've created the encapsulation, I'm going to put the IP address on here. And we already looked at it as 172. And let me double check one last time, .17 I believe. Alright. 172.17.10.1, and it's a Class C subnet mask. Alright, so then I would just go back to interface Gigabit Ethernet 0/0.30, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to do these same steps. So we've gone down into the subinterface. We're going to set the encapsulation to .1Q, and we're going to put the VLAN at VLAN 30. Alright. Okay. So we've created the subinterface. We've assigned the encapsulation to be .1Q, and we've assigned VLAN 30 to subinterface Internet Gigabit 0/0.30. And now what we're going to do is we're going to assign the IP address, which is going to be 172.17.30.1, and again 255.255.255.0. And that's it. So those are the two subinterfaces we need. So we're going to exit out. If I was to go into Gigabit Ethernet 0/0, I'm going to type no shut, and it's going to bring all of those interfaces up. And so now if I do show do show IP interfaces brief, right, you can see that the subinterfaces are actually listed here. So you can see we've got subinterface .10 and .20 under Gigabit Ethernet 0/0 with our IPs assigned, and those interfaces are up and up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and type end. I'm going to save my configuration just to make sure. Alright, so we've got green link lights, so let's see what happens. So we did the show IP interfaces brief. We enabled the interface. The subinterfaces are active, so now we're going to test again. And let's see what happens here. So I'm going to ping from PC1 over to PC3. So I'm pinging 172.17.30.10. And so we're going to time out, as you would expect, because we still have one more step to go. So again, still not working, right? And we're going to have to deal with the trunk port here on switch 1. And so that's what it says, enable trunking. So on switch 1, gig 11, which is the port that connects into the router, we're going to have to create a trunk port there. So I'm going to go interface Gigabit Ethernet 1/1. Right, we'll do a no shut on that interface to make sure that it's up. And what we want to do now is we want to go ahead and configure this link as a trunk. And so what we would do is we would go ahead and say switch port mode trunk. And you can see that the interfaces come up. So if I do show interfaces trunk, gig 1.1, the trunking mode is on because we forced it into a trunk mode. The encapsulation is 802.1q. The status is trunking, and the native VLAN is 1. And you can see the VLANs that are allowed are 1, 10, and 30. And it says because the router was configured with multiple subinterfaces assigned to different VLANs, the switch port must be a trunk. It says, how can you determine if the interface, or that the interface is a trunk when using the show VLAN command? And the way that you can do that is to take a look here and see, does the interface show up when you do the show VLAN command? And so as you can see, gig 1.1 is now gone from that output. So clearly, if the interface does not show here, that interface is currently assigned as a trunk port. All right, so let's save our configuration just to be sure. So we'll do a write mem. And we did the show interfaces trunk. It says switch to simulation mode and monitor the pings. So I'll tell you what, we're 60 out of 60 right now. I'm just going to go ahead and ping. We don't even need to do simulation mode. Let's see if this works. So now I'm going to ping 172.17.30.10, and I'm pinging that from PC1. And as you can see, we've got success. It had to ARP out. And there you go. And so it works from PC1. Now let me try from PC3 to ping back across to 172.17.10.10. All right, and we've got success. And so this is how you configure a router on a stick inter VLAN routing topology. And again, the key is that on the switch, this is going to be a trunk port. We're going to set our sub interfaces here under the main interface, and we don't configure the main interface. We're setting that up under the sub interfaces, and that's where we assign our IP addresses. And this is how you perform a router on a stick. All right, I hope you found this video tutorial helpful, and I'll see you all this week.